Hey guys, welcome to CraterMania. I'm your host, the man they call Crater, and I'd like to welcome you all back to this new series that I have going here, How I Got into Wrestling. And this is a show where we learn about how wrestling fans from all over the world, we'll just say that, give their perspective of how they got into wrestling. Um, and on today's show, we have a very special guest. In fact, he is the first ever special guest that I've had, not only on just this show, but the entire Crater Mania channel. And now, entering the Crater Mania arena, we have John Grande of Grande's Graveyard. Welcome to the show, John. Glad to have you here, man.
The man they call Crater, what you gonna do, brother, when CraterMania runs wild on you? Crater, my friend, thank you so much for having me on the stream here today. This means a lot to me. I'm honored and humbled beyond honor and humbling goes to be your first guest and your first, of course, guest on this new program that you're doing. And I'm very much excited to talk about how I got into wrestling, the whole 9 yards. I caught the first episode, thought it was awesome. So thank you so much for having me today, man.
Hey, I am so glad to have it's an honor, man, to have you on, and thank you for doing this, taking the time to do this for sure. So before we get into the main part of the show, I just wanted to have you tell everyone a little bit about who you are, what you do on your YouTube channel.
Sure. Yeah. No. My name's John Grande, obviously of Grande's Graveyard, and I do a live stream every Thursday night, live 8:05. Yes, just because it rhymes. And we pretty much dive through a different subgenre or cultural look or different vibe era time of the horror movie genre. I try to keep it as diverse as humanly possible. This way to prevent the show from becoming stale. It's not your typical, oh, I talk about Scream every week or Halloween every week. Like we jump into some fun things, obscure slashers, Jolly, the whole 9 yards, anything around me we've discussed on the show. And it's got a nice niche little following, nothing huge, but so many nice people from, like you said, all over the world that come to support and watch if they can't live, catching the replay. And it means the world to me. So I really love doing it, and it's fun to interact and meet people with similar interests from all around. And it's nice. It's nice to talk. It's my escape from the world. Grande's Graveyard is my highlight of the week every week, and it's a lot of fun. We do one show every Thursday of every month, and it's been a blast. Over 300 episodes, man. You actually joined on one of them. We did a horror roundtable with me, you, Dirk, and Darren, which are always fun, shooting the breeze with you guys. And yeah, no, it's a great time. Grande's Graveyard is definitely a really awesome thing.
Yeah, man, and I've been following your channel for a while now, and John, he puts out some great content, guys. Like, especially if you're a horror fan, he has like his own like top 10 lists and stuff. And for wrestling fans, he has some wrestling videos on there too. And I'll talk a little bit about that later once we get into the interview with John. But I just want to go over some of these. There's some people we got in the chat right now. So let's see. We got Mrs. C. Hi, everybody. Horrorhead Heather says
Triple H.
Grande. Oh, yeah. Horrorhead Heather, Triple H, Grande, kicking candy ass. Let's see. We got the Haddonfield mascot. Glad I could catch some of this. Pro wrestling is the spice of life. Indeed, it is, sir. Indeed, it is. And let's see. And I think that's all we got in here right now. But let's go ahead and just jump right into this, John. So I guess the most important question we want to start off with, as it applies to this show, how did you get into wrestling?
Man, I got to tell you, I was a late bloomer to it. I was right full age of about 10 years old, and it was the tail end of 2007. And as you know, ECW in 2006 had its kind of BS WWE revival where it was soft and it was anything but extreme, and there were zombies and the Sandman coming up to hit the zombie. It wasn't any good, but that was actually my very first exposure to pro wrestling. I'll never forget it.
Wow.
And I actually looked up the date because I was curious when you asked me this question, how I got into it. It was October the 10th of 2007, and CM Punk took on John Morrison in the main event of ECW that night, which was airing on the Sci-Fi Channel at that time. And that was where I first watched pro wrestling. And they were running this match where the gimmick was Punk was injured. His ribs were broken by Big Daddy V a week or so prior. And the whole main event match was Morrison working the ribs and Punk trying to battle back. And you got to keep in mind, I thought it was 100% real. I thought it was 100% a shoot. So I'm watching this like, my God, this guy with broken ribs. And I like watching this. I was so into it, invested in cheering for the guy to win. And unfortunately, he doesn't win. He loses the match to Morrison. But when it ended, when the dust had settled and they played the entrance music, I was like, that's my guy. Like, what a tough son of a bitch. And I was hooked from there on out. And then, of course, I came the Friday night SmackDowns, the Monday Night Raws, and all the colorful characters, whether they be heels or baby faces. I learned to, love some of them and hate some of them and everything in between. And to show this, I actually do have an autographed picture of CM Punk when he was
Is that an original
ECW.
promo photo?
Yes, it was. He signed at the mall by me. I didn't get to meet him,
Wow.
but I went the day after he signed, and they had tons of leftovers. They were like, "Here, $20," and I was like, "Yes, like please, please, please." So got that.
Man.
That's been framed in my house since 2007. Almost 20 years ago now, which is crazy to think about. But I was so into it, man, and it meant a lot to me. And I don't know, I loved the stories. Like I know a lot of people, they bash it and say, "Oh, well, it's not real, Grande." And I'll be honest with you, I'm something I wanted to ask you. When I found out it wasn't a shoot per se, right? It's a work. I thought it was even more interesting. Like that made me more engaged in it because it's two people working together to entertain me and tell a story. And there's so much psychology there. Did that for you? Was that a big moment for you in the turning point of once you found out it was a work as opposed to a shoot? Was that something that turned you off of it, or did you get you more into the whole thing?
No, like I actually so I talked a little bit about this yesterday on the first episode, but when I first got into wrestling, I thought it was all real.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought, these people really hate each other. They were really trying to hurt each other and just all these bad I hated all the bad guys. But I was probably maybe 13 or 14 years old,
Okay.
before I finally, realized, "Oh, this is, just is kinda like a show, like a TV show, these are, they're actors, they're scripting all this stuff," and I think what made me realize is, there was this VHS tape that I had found. It was, how, the behind the scenes, the magic of pro wrestling or something, and it was just, this tape that exposed, all these secrets and how wrestling works. And I think I did a little bit of research on that, and there was some actual wrestlers that were pissed off that VHS got released, and it was killing the magic of the business or whatever. But to me, it just made me find this newfound respect for what I already loved, and it made me kind of go from oh, well, these bad guys aren't really necessarily bad guys. I mean, they could be, I don't know. But but it made me appreciate them more, and it made me start liking the heels, not just the baby faces, but I like the heels too. So I think that definitely was something that kind of developed for me personally to just have even more of an interest in it.
Yeah, and I'm in the same exact boat too because I again, yeah, didn't like the heels, and then when you realize, wait a minute, their goal is to be hated. Their goal is for you to boo them and want the hero to come over them and win, and that made it so much more exciting to me. Like, okay, his job is to get heat. His job is to get despised, and that all just kind of made me more into it. And I mentioned the heel of the match that got me into it was John Morrison. He was
Mhm.
formerly Johnny Nitro, but I had only seen him as John Morrison.
Right.
And I thought he was actually related to Jim Morrison. I'm like, this guy looks exactly like him. Like, what the
Yeah.
hell? He looks like
And
his evil grandson or something.
And I've never done much research on, I mean, I was always a fan of John Morrison, but that was my, initial thought, when they brought him in and changed the gimmick from Johnny Nitro to John Morrison. I'm like, oh, it's like a Jim Morrison gimmick. And I don't know if that was his idea. I don't know if that was somebody within WWE. It's like, hey, you look like Jim Morrison. We're going to make you John Morrison. So I don't know. That's interesting. And it's something I should look into for sure.
Yeah, no, and he was one of the first. Him and the Miz, when they were a tag team, like a year or so
Mhm.
down the road, they did this show every week called The Dirt Sheet, where they
Yeah,
would get
I
on
remember that.
the camera in character and just bury the business. And they were some of the first heels I can remember really liking, because I was like, these guys are cool. Like they're funny, they're poking fun at it, even though these guys are bad guys. And I still think this was a real thing at the time. I liked them. I kind of was like, okay, these guys are all right. These guys are cool. I don't know if you remember when you found out it was like how you found out it was a work as opposed to a shoot, because I do. I could tell that story really quick. So CM Punk was my guy, right? He wins Money in the Bank, WrestleMania 24. I'm super excited. Next world champion. He beats Edge on the Monday Night Raw after Batista attacks him and all that. And I celebrated like the Steelers won the Super Bowl or the Mets won the World Series. I was so like, my guy is the number one. And I remember my dad being like, listen, we got to have a talk. And he sat me down and told me, he's like, listen, if I hit somebody with a steel chair like that, I don't think they would like, hulk up or, crawl to the ropes when they're in a submission hold. And he explained the whole thing to me. And I was like, no. And then when I found out, I was like, holy shit, he's right. Like, he's totally right. But I don't know. It made me, it more endeared me to it in a way. And that's what I think is so cool.
Did it hurt you in any way that like how that he let you know that,
he did it so softly. Like it would be one thing if he came up to me like it's fake, like, or if he did it without any heart. Like he sat me down. It was almost like the Santa Claus talk, right? Where listen, this is not really a fat holly jolly son of a bitch coming down the chimney giving us gifts every year. It's really your mother and I. So I don't know. Like to me, I look at it like that. He did it with nice intention, but someone had to tell me because I really did believe that it was all fucking real.
And like I said, I found out because of that VHS tape that I had found about like the whatever the name of it was, like the magic or the secrets behind pro wrestling, something like that. And I think, to me personally, if like my dad or my brother had sit down and had that talk with me instead of me finding out the way that I did, I don't know, I would probably be really upset.
I know you're not wrong.
I would think that they were lying to me or something.
I did. I thought I was like, no. And then as more I watched it, I was like, he's totally right. Like I figured it out as I'm like, yeah, yes, he kind of had a point.
But, at the same time, I was, like I said, I was like 13, 14 years old. So I was kind of, getting that close to the age where I would, I was an adult. So, I mean, I was kind of more understanding of it than I would have been when I've been a lot younger. Now, did you say how old were you when you did that?
I was 10 when I first watched it, but I would have been 11 by the time I was told. So I was 11 years old once the news was broke to me.
Okay, so it's just about a year in after you got into it that
right.
Your dad told you that. Okay. So you said CM Punk was the first wrestler that you became pretty much a fan of. And,
totally. And I, it's funny how much of my lifestyle I've kind of lived because like I've never drank alcohol, never did a drug, and a lot of that was because of him. He did his whole promos. I'm straight edge and I'm drug free, I'm alcohol free, wrestling's my addiction. And I remember like you had kids my age. I'm a New York guy. Derek Jeter, I want to be like Derek Jeter, or David Wright, I want to be like David Wright. These were big baseball stars at that time when I was a kid. Respect to both of them. I wanted to be like CM Punk. Like they had the Pepsi tattoo, and I love soda. I'm a big Mountain Dew guy, as my viewers know. I'm just my favorite soda. It's a Pepsi product, so I guess I'm under the umbrella. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. All his tattoos had some sort of meaning. I know he's a big horror fan, and I don't know, I gravitated towards him. I was like, that's my guy, and that was really he played a important part in my upbringing. I would say he was one of my idols as a kid for sure.
Have you ever got to meet him?
I never got to meet him, and to be honest, I don't know, I don't want to go too far down this road. I'm not a big fan of the guy now, especially after the AEW stuff. Some of the stuff that he's unfortunately done, like starting fights, and some of the stuff he said, that press conference with the muffins and all that, like I don't, he's one hero, man. I'm good on if I never meet him because I don't know if I would be as thrilled. Like, I can't explain it to you. To me, he reminds me of Kevin Smith. Like, I think the old him would make fun of this version of him, if that makes any sense. Like, Kevin Smith was cutting edge of the industry, and Clerks and Mallrats and Chasing Amy and all these great movies. And then now it just feels like he's become a parody of himself. I don't think the stuff he turns out is as good. And
I can kind of see that.
Yeah,
I can definitely kind of see that. Yes, that's a good point. Like, I mean, but do you think it's like an age thing with him now? Like, he's trying to like settle down, not be as kind of like tough and gruff and just the way anti authority and all that he used to be, like, so for so many years, even leading into, like, after he left WWE, he did that interview with Colt Cabana,
Right.
and just he just basically trashed WWE. Like, he just might as well just put him in a trash can, but like, you think it's just an age thing, a maturity thing now, or what
It
do you think?
might be, like, I don't, the only person that could tell you what he's going through, how he feels is him, and you
Yeah.
hear the word change thrown a lot. "Oh, he's changed, he's changed, he's changed." He still seems like the same guy, but, like, it doesn't hit the same anymore, and I don't know why that is. Just doesn't have that same magic or oomph to me. I'm
Mhm.
happy for him. I'm happy for his fans that still, like, are super, super into it, and I will say this, he could still tell a story better than anybody they got. Like, that's his
Yeah.
talent. I don't know. I don't. Maybe this is a question for you. Is how much do you think he separates himself from the gimmick? Like, that's a, because I don't think he does, and I think that as an adult, like as a 29-year-old man, I look at it and I'm like, do you really believe you're the gimmick, or maybe I'm just completely crazy? I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I'm with you on that, honestly. Like, other than just the whole, like, well, he's having a feud with this guy or that guy, or he hates Seth Rollins or whatever. I think that other than that, he's pretty much who he is, outside the ring as he is inside the ring, and that character. But, like, I know for a fact, they well, I don't really know for a fact, but just I have to go based off what the internet tells me. But him and Seth Rollins, they really did have like a big like gripe with one another, and they really didn't care for one another for years. But I think now, like, if you've watched WWE Unreal, it seems like they're on good terms now,
Right.
and they're probably really close friends now. But it's, yeah, I mean, like you said, I think that he's probably, very close to what you see on TV is what you get in real life as well. Because he even like kind of throws in his own like personal interests from time to time, with into the character. Like, you see him wearing like punk band shirts. You hear him talk about comic book characters and
The
stuff like
Silver
that.
Shamrock tights at Survivor Series.
Yeah, I mean, it's clobbering time. It's from The Thing,
The
from
thing.
Fantastic Four, oh, and yeah, like you said, the silver sham that man, when I saw those
Me
tights,
too.
I marked out for sure.
Me
When
too.
I was like, "Fucking Halloween 3 tights," and he talked about that in an interview. I think it was on, what's Sam, so the bald-headed guy who's on WWE sometimes.
Sam Roberts.
Yeah, Sam Roberts. I think he was doing an interview with Sam Roberts, and he was talking about the Halloween 3 title. So he was originally supposed to like have those around Halloween time, but something happened with like his one of his mentors in martial arts or something had passed away, and he
Right.
did like a ring gear for him. He came out in instead around that time of Halloween, and he just saved the Halloween 3 gear for like for Survivor Series in November. But yeah, I've met CM Punk one time. It was back in 2011. And it was when he was the champion at the time. And I think it was actually the week after, like the Raw 1000, when The Rock ended the show and Punk comes out there and attacks him.
And they turned Punk heel. Holy cow.
Yeah, like, so I met him he was at a Wizard World convention in Ohio, and we got to meet. It was really quick. We just did like the photo op with him, but I got to speak to him for just a second. He was super cool, at least he seemed to be. I mean, for those few seconds that I got to talk to him. But I've been a big fan of him and I still am. I've been a big fan of Punk for years. The first time I ever got to see him live was right before they debuted. It's funny that you mentioned ECW on Sci-Fi, so like right before they debuted ECW on Sci-Fi in 2006, when the reboot of ECW, I got to go to this house show that they were doing. It was like they did like a little series of house shows after ECW One Night Stand, where RVD won the title from Cena.
Right.
So one of them was in Huntington, West Virginia, and and there's kind of a very infamous story surrounding the aftermath of that event, and I'll get into it in just a minute. But like, so I went to this house show, and and like the main event was RVD versus Big Show, and there was like I think Justin Credible fought Sandman, and CW Anderson fought Sabu, and there was like several matches. Tommy Dreamer versus Test. Um, but CM Punk was on that card, and this was before he had, they had ECW on Sci-Fi, before he had debuted on TV with WWE. He had just come out of OVW. They'd signed him on, but he hadn't debuted on TV yet.
Right.
But he had a match with the Vampire guy Kevin Thorne at
Yes.
that event. And the cool thing about this, because like I've mentioned this several times, my favorite band is AFI, and so CM Punk in Ring of Honor and on the Indies, he used to use AFI's Miseria Canter, which is the first song on the Sing the Sorrow album. So he actually came out to that music at that ECW house show.
Oh.
And I was like, no way, because he wasn't even advertised like on the card or anything. And when they played that music, I was like, that's fucking AFI. I was like, that's CM Punk. And I was like losing my shit, man. I have pictures somewhere on my Facebook that from that event, because we were like in second row at that event on the floor. And so I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. And then, we got to see like Sandman after the event, outside the arena. And then we seen RVD and Sabu getting in this car and leaving. They didn't come over to talk to fan, but we seen them leaving. So shortly after that, down the road, RVD and Sabu got pulled over, and then that's when they caught him with
They took the belts off
and
him.
they took the belt off RVD after that. So like I was at
Holy
the
shit,
event
man.
that night that happened. But yeah, so that's just my little story, how I got to first see Punk. And I'd been a fan of him already for years, like I found Punk through when he was in TNA with Raven and the Nest group and stuff that they did in TNA.
There was the dog collar match, right? Where there was
Mhm.
the I always loved the ROH stuff with him too, like the
Yep,
Southern
and like
Cross.
one of the best, and I'm hoping because they're doing the whole CM Punk like thing for the new WWE
Yeah,
2K26
2K26.
game, and I'm hoping they somehow got Chris Hero to agree to be in the game, because they're one of the best Punk matches that
The
in
TLC match?
well, no, it's like a 60-minute Iron Man match, but they went into overtime and it turned into like 90 minutes. Like it's this crazy. Oh my god, it's one of the best CM Punk matches there is. If anybody's never seen it, go find that match and watch it. It's amazing.
He's totally right. That like Punk and Samoa Joe did some great stuff, but I always think Chris Hero in the Indies wise was
Mhm.
easily his best. Like that tables, ladders, and chairs match they had, where Chris Hero he came out with Nadia Nice. Like there's a point where CM Punk tombstones her through a table. Like it's crazy. It's one of my best. That was, I want to say, was that the IWA days?
IWA Mid South, I think.
Right.
So yeah, that was because around that whole time he was kind of fluctuating from like Ring of Honor and IWA and Full Impact Pro and just a bunch of different places, and then he would eventually go and work in OVW before he came up to WWE.
Right.
But yeah, I've been a fan of Punk for a long time. I'm glad you brought him up, man, because like I said, I'm a fan of a lot of different guys, but Punk has always been one of those guys that kind of stands out to me because I've always been into all the stuff that he's into. He's got like the Cobra tattoo from
Right.
GI Joe, and then like, he's in all this different. His name comes from punk rock because he's a fan of all these punk rock bands, and that was a whole thing with me, my growing up too, loving punk rock music. And so, yeah, thanks for bringing him up, man.
Yeah, no, of course, man. Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd be honest with you, I wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for him.
So my next question is, around this time when you first got into wrestling, other than the one that you've already mentioned, were there any other like memorable moments or matches around that time that really stands out to you that kind of helped you further get into professional wrestling?
Absolutely. There would be two that immediately stand out in my mind. And I'm one of those guys, creator, like I am from a newer school, right? But I love the old school. I'm that way
Mhm.
with movies. I'm that way with sports, wrestling, whatever. Like once I'm into something, I want to know the history and the lineage and what came before to get to what I can see now, right? That's kind of just how I am. So I went to the archives. I immediately, when I started watching the current show, I was like, what can I watch from yesteryear? And everyone at the time buried ECW, the WWE ECW, rightfully so. It wasn't a very good product. And I was like, well, if this sucks, if this is the bad ECW, what was the good ECW? So I went back to the archives and I would rent VHS tapes of some of the old school ECW. Some of them were bootlegs, some of them were in piss
Right.
poor quality. But one match that I'll never forget, and it's one of my favorite matches of all time, it was RVD and Jerry Lynn at an ECW pay-per-view. I want to say it was WrestlePalooza, but I can't for the life of me remember if that's exactly
They
what it
had
was.
several different ones. There was like that one. There was Hardcore Heaven. I think they did the one at November to Remember.
Right, they had a great feud, but the match itself, RVD was the ECW TV champion, and Jerry Lynn was the challenger, and they fight, have this amazing like 5-star match, and the time limit runs out, and they're awarding Jerry Lynn the title. Like, I know you didn't pin him, he didn't pin you, but
Oh, I
you
know what you're talking
dominated
about.
the match, and he says, "No, I didn't pin him." He gives
Yeah.
the belt back, and they go into this 5-minute overtime, and Van Dam beats him. It was in that moment where I said, this is something that nobody gives it credit for, and how I realized how freaking smart Paul Heyman is as a booker is the fact that it wasn't good enough for the hero to win the title based on points. He wanted to pin or submit RVD, and his nobility, his giving it back, ultimately costs him the win, and RVD wins the match. The whole fucking show. Like, when I saw that, I was like, man, wrestling is so much better than people give it credit for. Like, that is the story, the psychology there of I'm not taking it like I want to beat him. The pride, right? The pride before the fall. Great stuff. That's one of my favorites. Are you a fan of? Because I know RVD gets a lot of love, but Jerry Lynn, man, was I think fucking so good.
Man, I love so many of those ECW guys, and like, I talked a little bit about that yesterday on episode 1 too, about, my experience with ECW and how how I found out about ECW was through the magazines. Before I ever seen anything on TV about them, I would read about these wrestlers in the magazines and the matches they had and stuff. And like, I was like, oh, I could just see photos in the magazine of these matches, but I'd be really cool to see them, see them happen. But it wasn't till they came into like WCW and WWE or WWF at the time back in '97 when they were helped promote Barely Legal, the first ECW pay per view.
Right,
I started like actually getting to see these guys, on TV, and then I would just still kind of see them here and there. I would find like the tape trading was a big thing back in the late '90s or early to late '90s, and that's the only way I would for the longest while be able to see these ECW matches in full until they would get their deal with TNN. ECW on TNN
right.
in the late '90s, and that's when I started watching it regularly. I would never miss ECW on TNN. It would come on every Friday night. It was just like an hour-long show, but that was my exposure to Jerry Lynn at that time. That's when they started putting him over, as this top guy in ECW, which he would later go on to be the ECW champion before they would go out of business. But those matches with between him and RVD is what not only made me a fan of Jerry Lynn, but made me a fan of Rob Van Dam more because
Right.
I'd seen Rob Van Dam's stuff before, but like though to me that was RVD's best feud, and
I agree.
his entire career was with Jerry Lynn. And there's actually going to be a little convention nearby me here in a couple of months. I think it's in April at the Appalachian Wireless Arena in Pikeville, Kentucky, called Heroes and Hollers and Heroes Con or something like that. They had it last year. Last year Ricky Steamboat was there, the Godfather was there, Shane Douglas, the Big Show was there. This year they're having Matt Riddle, Shane Douglas is going to be there again, Rhino, the Sandman, Jerry Lynn just got added, so that's why I wanted to bring that up. But man, I absolutely love those guys, and I can't wait to go and see and meet Jerry Lynn. I just think he is when it comes to like in ring competitors, Jerry Lynn is really, really underrated these days. I mean, people loved him that experienced it live and seen him, in kind of the prime of his career back then. But nowadays, especially like newer fans, people are just kind of getting within professional wrestling within the past decade or so. They could probably go and see his matches. Like you said, you went to the archives and
That's what I
watched
did.
those.
Yes.
But like, here's a question I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
So, how do you like when you watch something that is live, like when you first got into it and you was seeing that wrestling live in 2007, when you watch that and you have that feeling that kind of that grabs you into being interested with what you're watching, do you prefer that? Is it a better feeling watching it live, or watching something that's already happened years ago and you're seeing it for the first time? How is that feeling different?
So it is different completely. So in a way, I think when you're watching the current product and you're watching the buildup of these shows, you're robbed of that when you go to the archives. I didn't know the story going into RVD Jerry Lynn. I just hit play and watched the pay-per-view match. It's still a great match. It's still one of my favorite matches, and a big reason why I'm a wrestling fan today. But what I was robbed of is the feeling of the build moving towards it, and getting hyped up for it and picking a side, right? Your proverbial who am I with? Who do I want to win? What type of story are they going to tell to ultimately get to the psychological point that Heyman writes for Jerry Lynn, that it's not good enough to beat him on points. Hence, he cost himself everything. I love that. That's what you get robbed of is the storytelling prior, in my personal opinion. Like, there's nothing. I'm sure you could relate to this, and since I'm obviously a '07 after guy, the hype you felt with Punk and Cena with that Money in the Bank match, and they cut his microphone off, and the whole, like, oh my god, the hype of that match was unmatched. I mean, I don't know, and even a match that didn't deliver, Randy Orton Triple H at WrestleMania 25. I remember Triple H broke into Randy Orton's kayfabe house and threw him out the window, got arrested on the front lawn. The hype of that, like, holy shit, man! That's what you miss when you go hit the replay on the archives. Unless you're obviously somebody that watches the TVs up to the pay per view, but
Mhm.
I'm not really want to do that. That to me is the biggest difference. But what would you say?
I mean, I'm right there with you as well. Like, like I said, I've been watching since 1990. So that's 36 years, man. But there was a lot of stuff that came before that I'm also interested in, like the stuff that I never got to see, live or whatever, which was, a lot of 80s wrestling, whether it be NWA or it be WWF or whatever, or AWA. So I love watching that stuff. One of the craziest matches I've ever watched was this cage match between Bob Backlund and Pat Patterson. I think it took place in either the late '70s or early
Was
'80s.
that on the DVD? It was like the best steel cage matches of
Yeah, it's like bloodiest cage matches or something. That's how
that
that was
match is great. I've seen the
Yeah,
match.
that was the first. That was that DVD. It was the first time I ever seen that. I
Oh,
was like,
okay, me
"Holy
too.
shit, this is a fucking amazing match." But I was always in, renting like these old VHS tapes at the video store in the '90s of WWF fence and stuff from the '80s, and I remember my brother having me rent this NWA Starcade. It was like Night of the Skywalkers. So I think it was like the Midnight Express and the Road Warriors, where they're up on like this scaffold. It's like a scaffold match, and it was crazy. And I think that's the one where like Jim Cornette gets up there and he's like hanging off the side of the scaffold and stuff. And but it didn't matter to me. Like even if that stuff happened like years prior, but I had never seen it. Like just seeing it for that first time, it gives me still that same feeling as what would happen, like, if something really cool happened nowadays live and I'm seeing
Sure.
that for the first time. So
Yeah.
there's not too much of a difference there for me.
Yeah, no, I hear you completely. And like I always say this too, and I said this on the show a couple weeks ago. Like, when horror movies, when wrestling, when something I'm passionate about is good, no matter when it happened, whether it happened 20 years ago, whether it happens 20 days from now, it's special, and there's nothing else on this planet like it. And that's why I'm so
Yeah,
passionate about it. And
absolutely.
that Pat Patterson Bob Backlund's cage match. I thought I was the only person in the world that knew how good that match was.
Yeah, I have that DVD here somewhere,
I do
but like,
too. I'm looking on the shelf. I don't want to get up and break the
but
flow, but
that
I
was that
oh,
same way, man. I saw that match for the first time on that DVD, and now like whenever like people were talking about bloodiest cage matches and shit
Oh
like that,
shit.
I always bring that one up. I was like, you guys, if you haven't seen Pat Patterson, Bob Backlund, this cage match, you gotta watch it.
And
And
I'd
then,
go out on a limb to say I bet you hear crickets most of the time when you bring
mhm.
up that match because that's not a very much discussed match ever, really.
No, and one other thing I want to mention since you brought that up is because when I got into wrestling, it was kind of towards the end of like Dusty Rhodes, active career as a wrestler. And it was because he would soon become a commentator or a manager within WCW.
He was a
But
part of the NWO at one point.
yeah, in '98 he joined the NWO, and but that was I'm a huge fan of Dusty, and
Oh,
because of those tapes and everything that I would go back and watch, especially even more than just those uh renting those tapes, just whenever the WWE network came out, and all these archive of all these different events that I had never seen before were put on there. And it made me even an even bigger Dusty fan, watching all these and these promos, these matches, and just there's so much stuff out there now. And sometimes I know we complain about the internet a lot,
sure.
as as people in general do, but if it weren't for the internet, we would not have access to all this stuff other than physical media, and there's not even physical media out there that has all of these matches on them. So I'm just, I'm thankful for these archives and the internet, just that having access to all these things nowadays that we do. Even though we complain about it sometimes, but still, it's very beneficial to us, especially as wrestling fans. And so I'm just so thankful that I can go back and watch this stuff, anytime I want and learn more and more and more about it.
I'm completely there with you, and yeah, that's like you got to keep in mind. I was 10 when I got into it, 2007. Dusty Rhodes is long retired at that point, yet I'm the same guy. Like I don't know if you ever watched the Legends of Wrestling show where it was like a
Mhm.
round table, and he's on a lot of them, and that's where I really got my main like here's Dusty Rhodes, and I fell in love with him and the character and how smart he was, and the whole like I know people superstar Billy Graham or Hulk Hogan or Savage, and I like all those guys. Don't get me wrong, but like Dusty was my guy because I liked the whole mentality of I don't look how the athlete of the day is supposed to look, daddy. I'm the American dream. And
I like
the
that.
whole mentality of I shouldn't be here, I shouldn't belong here, but I can talk, I can jive, and I could bring this crowd to their feet at any time. And he always said it, and I know it's not appropriate to say, but he would say, I masturbate people's emotions, baby. He masturbated their emotions. I can bring them up, I can bring them down, but the timing, if you will, that was Dusty, and like I am a huge fan of him. I think like he's an idol to me that
Mhm.
unfortunately wasn't really active when I was a kid. But if I was, I tell you right now, Chris Prater, that would have been my fucking guy. Like I know it.
Oh yeah.
That would have been my
But
guy.
I
Love
I think
Dusty.
so too, man. Like if it, if I hadn't gotten, if I had been born a lot earlier and got into wrestling before I did, I think that he would have been like probably my favorite of all time.
Yeah,
But just because of the time frame and everything that I got into, Sting just really became my guy, man. He's my favorite of all time. But Dusty would have definitely been up there for sure because like I didn't even really get into Dusty. I wasn't interested in Dusty until he was a commentator in WCW, and he was one of my absolute favorite commentators there. He was always on the pay-per-views there, like from '96 up to '97, I think. And he was a commentator on WCW Saturday Night, and that's where I really fell in love with him was on WCW Saturday Night because I think it was a match between Big Bubba Rogers and I can't remember who he was fighting, but like one of the guys grabs a bicycle to use as a weapon, and Dusty's like, "He got a bicycle! He got a bicycle, baby!" And I thought that was fucking hilarious, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "This Dusty guy is awesome," and but then that's when I kind of started looking more into his stuff, trying to find older tapes of his matches and just his promos and stuff, and like oh man, it's just been a journey. Like that, not just Dusty was so. I've done that with so many different guys. Piper, the Road Warriors, just so many. so many to name, man.
Yeah, that's and again the positive edge of the double-edged sword that is the internet when you get to go down the rabbit hole of some of these guys their careers and you could see when you talk to people that lived it that were kids when those guys were coming around the pike, you could see it through their eyes and their perspective like okay that's what you said, Roddy Piper, you know, the smallest guy with the biggest mouth. And I don't know, like that's a lot of guys, Bret Hart, all those great matches he had, Mr. Perfect, and you know, the Shawn Michaels of the world, and all these great stories that he would tell. You know, I thank the WWE Network a few years ago for that. Like I never, you know, Bret was retired by the time I was getting into it. So a lot of guys like that. I'm in the same boat with you.
Um, my next question for you is, and this could be kind of a difficult one. I know this is kind of a cliche question in a lot of wrestling interviews, but who is your wrestler Mount Rushmore?
Oh man. So if you're asking me personal favorite, I'm gonna have a different four than if you were just asking me like all time without any bias. So you just asking me my
And
personal?
yeah, and it can include, well, say I said wrestler, but I won't say anybody in wrestling. So it could be bookers, promoters, it could be managers, just whoever inside of the world of wrestling you want to put on that Mount Rushmore, go for it.
Wow. Okay. I'm not sitting here without CM Punk. So CM Punk would be on my Mount Rushmore just because of what he meant to me getting into it. Number two would be Chris Jericho. I'm a big Jericho holic. Always loved the way he entertained. I love the way he was always able to reinvent his character, where it would have been the fun, party, Y2J, rock and roll of Ayatollah, rock and roll, whatever it was. Love that. And then, of course, the slow speaking suits Jericho that would use all these crazy words from the dictionary to make himself sound smarter. Like that, I love the dichotomy of that. I love that he could play it as the most evil heel or the most loved and exciting babyface. So Chris
Oh yeah,
Jericho
absolutely.
totally be on my list. Bret the Hitman Hart, definitely. I think in ring the best to ever do it. I truly believe best there is, best there was, best there ever will be. I know people don't like him because he's become a little bit curmudgeon now, but I don't give a shit. Like to me, those matches, those stories, they meant something. Like the stuff with Owen. Anybody that's ever had a brother, that story between the two of them, it's so good. Like all these years later, been 30 years, and it still hits. Of I'm gonna beat you, big brother Bret, and the whole story in WrestleMania in the Garden, and holy shit, that stuff's great. I love that stuff. And then my last would be Mick Foley. Mick Foley, the dedication he had to the business, the sacrifices that his body took, his knees, the punishment, the promos, some of the Kane Dewey stuff in ECW where he's hitting himself and crying, and holy shit, man. I don't know anybody that gave more of their body to this business than Mick Foley did. I have nothing but
Yeah.
respect. And he, again, not just one character. He was Mankind, Cactus Jack, Dude Love, all, and he made them all work. He made them all work in different ways. And there was something always so charming about Mrs. Foley's little boy. So I would say that would be my Rushmore if it's personal. If it's like all time, who drew the most money, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
That's a
I mean,
different.
and there's so many different like kind of like ways you can do it. You can do like Mount Rushmore, you know, like your personal favorites. Who do you think was the, you know, Mount Rushmore of the biggest influences on the business, or Mount Rushmore tag teams? There's so many you could do, and like that's, you know, I might do like a show like that, you know, sometime, you know, and just maybe have like a round table or something with have you
Oh,
on there and some other people. We can all kind of like talk about just, you know, Mount Rushmore of all these different like kind of subgenres in wrestling or whatever.
now I know you
I
said
think
Sting was your favorite, and you had that awesome
mm,
Sting with the surfer and the crow sting on yesterday, which
yeah.
was a really cool shirt. I don't know if you mentioned your own personal Rushmore, but I'm curious. If you don't want to share, you don't have
I
to. But I'm
I
curious.
well, for my personal ones, it would Sting number
Yeah, I
1
figured he'd be
without
one.
a doubt. Um, number 2 would probably be Bret Hart.
Okay,
Um
we got that in common.
Which is funny because, like, him and Sting both have the same finishing move. Uh,
Just
um,
called different things.
but I mean,
Sharpshooter, Deathlock.
Scorpion Deathlock, yeah. The other 2, man, it's tough. Like, I know Sting and Bret Hart are on there for sure, but then I think of names like Dusty Rhodes and Roddy Piper and Stone Cold and just I wanna go ahead and say Dusty would definitely be on, so that's 3. So who would be number 4?
Dusty's gonna hit me with the bionic elbow for not putting him on mine.
I might have to say Piper, man.
Oh,
Um,
dude, I love
I
him.
I love Piper so much. I mean, I think he's one of the best mouthpieces in the history of wrestling. I mean, he can just come up with stuff on the fly. He would do that a lot. I know, especially in his times in WWF, and Vince would get so pissed off at him because he'd be doing in ring, he'd be going completely off script. But Piper was just such a fucking funny dude, man, and the nicest wrestler I've ever met in my life.
I'm so jealous, man. I had the chance to. It was the year before he passed, and his line was so long. And I remember being like, "We'll get back to it." And one of the biggest regrets of my life was not waiting on that
Man,
line to meet
like
Robbie.
I've met him like 3 or 4 different times
Oh,
in
that's
my
awesome.
before he passed away, and the first time I met him, I'll never forget it because I was friends with the promoter of this convention that he got brought into, and, I just had, like, a regular pass, I didn't have VIP or anything, and, the promoter knew that I was a huge wrestling fan, he knew that I was pretty much only coming to that show for Piper, and we came in and we was getting ready to go find Piper's line. And then my friend sees me. He's like, "Hey," he's like, "You here to see Piper?" I was like, "Of course." And he just took me straight to the front of the line. And,
Can't beat it.
me and my wife, we were just dating at the time, but like we met Piper together, and he was just the coolest fucking guy. His son was with him. I had wrestling stuff signed. I had They Live stuff signed by him. This is a time when conventions were a lot cheaper,
I'm
so
sure.
I wasn't spending a shit ton of money. And I just got to talk to him for a good amount of time, and he was like, "Hey, are you a wrestler?" He's like, "We could be a tag team," and he was trying to wrestle with me and stuff, and it's just so cool, super nice. And the dude must have an amazing memory. I've told this story to other people too in the past, but he must have this fucking amazing memory because, like I said, I met him about 3 or 4 different times, and he remembered me and my wife every single time.
Wow.
And I was like, "Holy shit!" And then he was like, "Hey guys," he's like, "I remember you from this show or that show," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like Roddy Piper remembered us."
That's
So
awesome.
so I guess I'm kind of biased in that way, that why I need to put Piper on that Mount Rushmore, because I can't say of any other wrestler. And I've met Dusty, I've met Brett, I've met Sting, I've met all those other, and I've met them multiple times each. Well, except Dusty, I only met Dusty the one time.
Right.
But any other wrestler I've ever met, I've met multiple. None of them ever remember me except Piper. So I gotta give it to him for that.
That's so cool, man. And like that, to have that type of interaction, it endears you the person more. Like I had that type with George Romero. When I met George Romero, it was a similar experience with that. Same with John Amplis. I met John Amplis a couple years ago. Talked to the guy. Literally, I had to end the conversation. I was like, I feel bad. There's people waiting to talk to you. Like we just instant when you click with somebody that you are a fan of and idolize with. There's few cooler moments because that's when they say don't meet your heroes. Like your heroes deliver in those moments.
I disagree, man. Like I've had bad experiences with people for sure, but everybody that I would consider my heroes or whatever, I've had nothing but excellent experiences with
And that
them.
makes it last a lifetime. Like
It
that's why
does. It
he's
means a
right here
lot.
and you're talking about him and you remembering those times is because of how cool he was to you. And also the whole movie career part of it can't hurt, knowing how much you
Yeah,
love movies. And same with me, They Live and Hell Comes to Frogtown. And like I'm a big Rowdy fan too. That's an awesome list, man.
absolutely, man. And I will say one last thing about that is that the last time I got to meet Piper was WrestleMania weekend at WrestleCon, right before WrestleMania 30, and
Right.
this was a year before Roddy passed away.
Pass. Yes.
And when I got to meet him that weekend, they had a whole Piper's Pit background for his photos at his table, and he was sharing the table with Jimmy Snuka. And so this is the only time I ever got to meet Jimmy Snuka before he passed. So they put them together for that reason, because of that legendary moment they
The
had years
coconut.
ago, the coconut busted over his skull. And if you go and look at the picture of me and my wife with Piper and Snuka on my Facebook, it's a really shitty photo. It's really blurry. And that's the only photo I have with Jimmy Snuka. But it was just, other than that, I don't discredit in any way, because it was just an amazing experience. Like that whole weekend, going to WrestleCon, meeting all these different wrestlers, because that's where I got to meet Sting for the first time. That's where I got to meet Bret Hart for the first
You were
time.
telling the story yesterday. I was like, this is vicariously. I loved that story. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, I mean that's we went to WrestleMania Access before it was called WrestleMania World or whatever now it's called.
Yeah,
It used to be called WrestleMania Access. That's where I got to meet Dusty for the one and only time. I got to meet Bob Backlund at that WrestleMania Access. It just a fucking amazing weekend, man. And that's a memory that I hope I never lose. No matter how old I get, because it was
sure.
just that whole weekend meant everything to me as a wrestling fan.
That's awesome, dude.
But the next question I have for you and this applies to your channel.
Ooh.
So 9 months ago on your channel, you left your viewers in suspense.
Oh my god.
You left us with a cliffhanger because you were doing a top 10 WrestleMania matches list and you left off at number 4. When are we going to get your top 3?
So I will say, and I'm happy you brought this up because this is my own silliness. I didn't get to finish the list before WrestleMania that year, and I was like, oh man, now if I do them after WrestleMania, I feel like loses a little bit of steam. And I was like, I'll do them, but eventually push it off, push it off, push it off. Now we're literally on the road to this year's WrestleMania. So I will continue and I will finish those
All
3. And I'm
right.
sorry for anyone I left hanging with that. You're not the only one. I had a few people message me like, you just stopped at number 4? Like, what the hell? So I am sorry to anyone that I let down with that. I will.
Which it was a good one to leave off with, which was it was Shawn Michaels and Undertaker at WrestleMania 25. And it's funny you mentioned like Orton and Triple H at that WrestleMania 25 because they went on after that
Oh,
match. And I think that you think that's why like so many people kind of like look at the match between Orton and Triple H as like not being that great because of what they had to follow.
yeah, no, you could have sent anyone in the history of the business out there in their prime, and they weren't. Nothing could follow that match. I mean, the crowd just was dead. It was similar with Hogan and The Rock at WrestleMania 18. Like, yeah, Triple H and Jericho were the main event for the undisputed title, and the
Mhm.
crowd was kind of dead. Like, it happens sometimes where the wind is out of the sails, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is the main event, but that was really the main event. So I don't
Right.
I don't necessarily fault those guys, Orton and Triple H. Like, I think they tried. Same with Edge and Cena and Big Show was on that with the triple threat on Mania
Mhm.
25. They tried, but when the crowd is out of gas, there's nothing really you can do. So that's
Right.
kind of what I look
Yeah,
at with
man, and
that.
that was still like when WrestleMania was just one night. And let me ask you your opinion on that. Like, do you like it better that they do 2 nights now instead of 1, or what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think because you have so much talent, and I do think they have a great, great roster. I know that despite people say, "Oh, the talent isn't as good anymore," I disagree. I think there's so many talented people on
Mhm.
these rosters. So I get the mentality of we want to get everybody on the show. We don't want to just do this battle royal that isn't aired on the pay per view. Blah blah blah. Like, I get that. I do, though, at the same time think, and I don't know if you'd be with me on this, I do think it's done for greed. I do. Like, I think we
Yeah.
get 2 paydays, 2 nights. Like, I'll be honest with you, I went to SummerSlam this past year, night 2, Cena and Cody, fantastic match. It was a
Yeah, I
really
remember you.
good pay-per-view. It was the night 2 was better than night 1, I'll put you that way. Like, but to get 2 big, big day pay-per-views out of it, I mean, it just feels like it's a little bit of a grab to me. I liked the one night feel of it. Like, we have the Super Bowl tonight. It's a special thing because it's one night only. So
Mhm.
I would like it the old way, but at the same time, are you going to have 15 matches like WrestleMania 35 or 15 matches like WrestleMania 6? Or there's a lot of WrestleManias that had so many matches on them that by the end you're just like, holy shit, I'm just waiting for this to end. So you don't want that. So I could see the positives, the pros, the cons. I just think if it was done for the right reasons, I'd be with it. But I do think it's for the almighty dollar, just like anything else.
Yeah, I completely agree with that too. And like you were saying though, like there's so much talent on the roster, and there's so little time just in one night now, to utilize, so many people on that roster. So to have 2 nights, they kind of have to do it that way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you said, it's for the almighty dollar. It's, they want to make more money in which way they can. That's why they have all these different sponsors on the ring mat and stuff now and everywhere. And like this match is sponsored by Dude Wipes and
Yeah, and this is sponsored by Drumstick. It's like,
yeah, whatever. But if you can look past all of that shit, though,
yes,
it's still it's fine. It's I still enjoy it. Like I said this yesterday. This was just something. There's a lot of silliness that goes on in wrestling. There's a lot of politics that goes on in wrestling, but there's always something there that's
yes.
always able to entertain me and to keep me invested and keep me on as a fan. Um, I guess so. I guess I should ask you this next question. Um, what nowadays keeps you on as a fan? And how do you feel about wrestling today as opposed to when you got into it initially?
I'm so happy you asked this question because I mean, to be honest with you, I can't say that I've been watching straight for all these years. That, like, you said, you said 36 years you've been watching wrestling, and I was in it for a long time, at least 10 plus years. And around the 2018 mark, it was somewhere in the middle of that year, if I remember correctly. I think the last pay-per-view I watched for years was the Hell in the Cell that year, where it was Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns and Money in the Bank cash in. And Brock came out, F5 them both, and there was no winner. And that was the end of the match. It was a cash in. It was a Hell in the Cell. No contest, no winner or loser. I remember being like, what are they doing? And then if you remember the Saudi show, the first ever one, I believe, with Shawn Michaels coming out of retirement, it was Brothers Destruction versus the
Tag
Edge.
match.
I remember being like, dude, I'm done. Like, I'm not watching this. Like, the way Shawn Michaels retired, we all should retire as singing My Way as we leave the fucking, waving down the avenue, driving in my fancy car at the sun setting, right? It should be as perfect as that. To bring him back, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. So I left it. I was out of love with it. I didn't love it anymore. Until I heard Dusty's son Cody was fighting in the main event of WrestleMania 39. And I went, I love Cody Rhodes for so many years. I was such a big fan of this guy. Like, if he won the title and I didn't watch it, I'd be doing myself and him a great disservice. So I watched WrestleMania 39, and unfortunately, Roman retained again. And I would being like, that's why I don't watch this anymore. Stayed away with it, but in and out, and then finally the rematch, WrestleMania 40. I went, all right, I'll give you one more shot at this the year later. And while that match was great and it was heartfelt and it was a great moment for wrestling, people crying, confetti, babies, and popcorn being thrown into the air, that was all well and good. But that's not what got me back into it. What got me back into it was the match before it, and it was Io Sky defending the title against Bayley. And I know a lot of people probably, what? But hear me out. Like, that was the match where I remembered why I loved it. And the main reason for that is, while it does take two to tango and Bayley did a fine job of the match, it was Io Sky's performance and the leaps, the moonsaults, the dives out of the ring, the way that she put her body on the line. And there's a specific point in that match where Bayley goes for the Rose Plant, which was like her new finisher. Right. And Sky does like a front flip, lands on her feet, and it's like this, like, no fucking way. And the crowd just was like, how did she do that? To me, it was in that moment where I was like, similar with CM Punk, I was like, that's my girl instead of my guy, whatever. That's my girl. Like, I love it. And even despite losing again, right? Both these situations where I fell in love with it, the person I wanted to win lost. It isn't about winning and losing. It's about, victory and defeat. And that's what that was for me. And I was hooked. Anything Io Sky, I'm watching it. And then eventually, towards the end of the next year, she wins the title against Rhea Ripley, who's like literally their top star on an offshoot Monday Night Raw. And I was like, this is great. Like, this is why I watch this stuff, again, math, debate, and emotions. It was the ultimate, the perfect timing. And I was like, holy shit, like, this is, and I did have a chance, I want to show this, to meet Io Sky. This was just after she lost the title, but super nice. Sorry for the glare. I'm trying my best. There you go. Super nice. Signed it. Talked to me for quite a few minutes after, because I got it signed.
That was at SummerSlam, right? When you went?
That was SummerSlam. Actually, it was the Friday morning before SummerSlam. So it was that weekend at the American Dream Mall in New Jersey. Man, she greeted me, and I'm telling you, like I said, Amplis Romero, those were the two in the movie community that meant the most. She
Mhm.
was, as wrestling community goes, could not have been nicer and just more friendly to me. And I was starstruck, man. Like I rarely get like that, but I was like, hi, and I shook her hand, and she went, come on, we'll take the picture. And I was like, okay. And oh my God, it was such a cool moment. I was glowing for like 3-4 days afterwards. You
Man.
couldn't take me away from it, man. That was special. So EO Sky is the big reason for me. But as far as, I'm sorry, to answer your question full circle, short answer, I'm not as into the indie stuff as I used to be. Like I loved ROH when I was a kid, first getting into it. Like Kevin Steen was my guy in the indies. And I remember telling my friends in ninth grade, I said, this guy's going to be a big deal in WWE. And they were like, he's too overweight. They'll never sign him. And I remember being like,
They said the
just
same thing
watch.
about Dusty Rhodes. They said the same thing about so many different, Vader, guys like that, Bam Bam Bigelow. But look
Yeah.
how they turned out.
And some of those are some of the Bam Bam Bigelow, one of the best big men wrestlers there ever was, man.
Yeah.
Matches with him and Brett and him and Taz in ECW where they going through the ring. Like Bam Bam was great. And yeah, like I agree. And then seeing him I was like, oh, good for Kevin Owens. Like when he won the title, that was a big moment for me. Sadly, he hasn't won it since. And I know he's severely injured, like neck injury amongst
Yeah.
others. So that's a bummer, but loved him too. So I think it's the glass half full right now, but like I think creatively they're a little starved. What do you think of the current like product? I'm curious.
I mean, it's kind of stale at times,
Yeah,
and then there's times it'll kind of like, something will pique my interest. Like, I'm glad you talked about EO Sky. She's one of those reasons. It's like because she never fails to impress me
me
in her
too.
match. And I feel like she only gets better, time after time. And I mean, you look at last year, the triple threat match between her and Rhea and Bianca Belair, one of the greatest, if not the greatest, women's match of all time.
With
And
you.
then later in that same year, the one-on-one match between her and Rhea at Evolution,
Evolution.
fucking amazing, and just every year that she's been in the War Games match where she's doing like the trash can over and she jumps off the top. I mean, yeah, it's done time and time again, but it's always entertaining. Um, so yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely, entertained by her. There's so many other people that I'm entertained by, and just like, even though as a Cody fan, and you brought up Cody too, because
Love Cody.
you see he was going to be in the main event of WrestleMania 39. That's what kind of brought you back into it. Yeah, I've been a Cody fan for so many years, like because of Dusty, he's Dusty's son. I was a fan of Goldust and Dustin Rhodes because he was Dusty's son. And when Cody first came into the WWE, and then he shortly went into the program with the legacy stuff with Orton
Right.
and DiBiase Jr. I followed him from day one. Man, as soon as he came into the WWE, and Goldust came here to my town once to our public library and did a free signing,
Oh, really?
and I actually talked with him more about Cody than his own career. and and this was at the time when Cody was doing the dashing Cody Rhodes stuff.
Oh, loved it.
And then I think like shortly after that he started like he grew the mustache and stuff.
Yeah, he
And
also
you
did
remember
the
when
the
Cody
mask, Cody Rhodes. There were so
uh,
many
and
good.
and I was pulling for Cody so much during that time. I was like, they need to push Cody harder. They need to get him in like the world title picture. And I told that to Goldust. He was like, I 100% agree. He's good. They don't know what they're doing with him right now. And and it just that's kind of how it ended up. That first run around with Cody and WWE, and then he ended up leaving and just fucking reinvented himself, man. Going to Japan and Ring of Honor, and then helping put together AEW,
Right.
then making his way back to WWE, and just that's really what keeps me watching, is because you don't never really know what's going to happen next and who's really going to reinvent themselves or change something about their the character or who if they're going to a stable. I would have never thought Logan Paul would be in a fucking stable with
No, me either.
some of these guys that's in WWE right now with the Vision. It's just that's really what keeps me watching, because even though if it gets stale, or even though there's things that's going on that I don't necessarily agree with, I always want to know what happens next.
Exactly. It's exciting to see. And you even mentioned stables. Like, I'm sure they never thought The Rock would be the big standout of the Nation of
Yeah,
Domination.
yeah.
Next thing you know, he's the biggest star in the business, and then he's the biggest star in Hollywood, and then he's the biggest star here and there, and he's his all-time icon. You never know. And Cody, if you told me in 2015 that Cody Rhodes would be the champion, Cody Rhodes would be the top guy in WWE, I would have been like, I hope you're right, but I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, it's just the way he was booked and presented. He was always going to be a lower mid card guy, and that was it. That was just the reality of it. So it was a sad thing because I saw his talent when he was in Rhodes Scholars, and they teased him winning the Money in the Bank. I was like, why didn't they just have him win the Money in the Bank? That's more of my frustration, man, because I see so much talent, and I just kind of scratch my head sometimes at the decisions. Like, I'm just like,
Yeah,
why not this person instead of this person, or why am I that over that? Like, that's really where I get more frustrated. But then again, maybe, man, maybe it's my age showing. Like, because I was a kid, I never really had problems like that. I didn't think about that stuff. I just want to be entertained. And now I could be entertained, but I get so frustrated because I see such
I
talent and they
get
don't
that.
push them.
Yeah, I definitely get that, man, because like, there it's fine when these guys that you're a fan of, like Cody and Punk, and they're actually getting that awesome success within the company and the business and all that. But then there's those guys that we're also fans of that they're really not doing anything with.
Right.
And I definitely get that. Like, I'm a fan of the Motor City Machine Guns, and they were like this past Friday on SmackDown was the first time they've been on TV in months, and it was just a little backstage segment, and that was it. And there's so many guys like that they right before Karrion Kross left WWE, they kind of teased like they were going to do something with him. I didn't. You couldn't really tell. I mean, he was having plenty of these backstage segments with Sami Zayn and AJ Styles and these different guys. What are they doing with him? And they didn't really do anything. And then he ended up leaving WWE, and they had this event. I think it was like last week with MLW, where he's their champion now. They had like the Battle Riot event, where it's like this huge battle royal thing, and then he won that, so he's their new champion. And then you look at guys like from yesteryear, from years ago, like Mr. Kennedy. Like he won the Money in the Bank that one year. Then
He
he was
never even got to cash it in.
no, because he lost it because they like put it on the line against Edge. Edge won it from him, and then supposedly there's like that story that he got fired because of Randy Orton. Like
The
almost
back
hurt
bump,
Randy Orton.
yeah.
And then you see him like go on to do stuff in TNA and stuff, but like they didn't really do anything much with him there either. Um, and then I seen here recently he's in JCW now.
Oh, is
Just
he? I didn't know
and
that.
he's their champion. Yeah,
Huh.
he just won their title because they had to vacate the title because Matt Cardona was their champion, but he had to vacate it because he's
He's back
obviously
in WB.
WWE now. So, yeah, it came down like I guess they did this tournament in JCW, and it came down to James Storm and Mr. Anderson. So he's their champion now, and but it's interesting to me, like But if you look at the whole business. As a whole, like all these different promotions from just WWE and AEW, TNA, just everything out there. Like say, hey, yeah, they don't have to be in WWE to have success. They can go to these other promotions, they can have success. But I think for a lot of these guys, the goal is to make it to the top of the mountain, to
Sure.
go into WWE and be. And I'm glad we got Cody there. I never would have thought they would have done that with Cody
Me
years ago.
neither.
When I first became a fan of CM Punk, I never would have thought they would, do what they did with him.
Never.
But and one of the guys you mentioned earlier, Kevin Steen, that was another guy that I met at that WrestleMania 30 weekend. It was
Oh, really?
right before he signed with WWE, so he was still like on the Indies and Ring of Honor and all that. And I got to meet him. It was like he was there, and Colt Cabana was beside of him. Chris Hero was beside of
Holy cow.
him on the other side of him. It was like I said, going back to what I said earlier, that was one of the greatest weekends ever.
I was gonna
Uh,
say you met
and
everybody on the sun, man.
and just to see so many of those guys that were there and what they would go on to do, like Kevin Steen going to be Kevin Owens, WWE, and have the success he's had. He's got to the top of the mountain there too. But then again, like there's just so many guys that I've been a fan of that haven't reached that success, and it sucks. But like but you got to just be positive about it. In my opinion, man, you got to just look at it as like, maybe they're not reaching the top, but as long, as they're entertaining to me, they're as long as I'm having fun watching them wrestle, seeing them still be talented, within the time they still have before they eventually retire, that's really all that matters to me. And I think, Chelsea Green talked about that in Unreal. Like, she's there to just kind of do whatever, they want her. As long as she's, get paid for it, as long as she's, entertaining people in some way or another. I think that's really all that matters. She doesn't care about championships. So, I mean, well, it's great to have championships and have that kind of added to your resume. It's just, I think as long as you're having fun with this, that's all that matters. But if it gets to that point where like you're not enjoying it, if you're not having fun with it anymore, then maybe that's just time to either hang it up or just stop watching or whatever the perspective is.
Yeah, no, I agree with you wholeheartedly. If you don't love it, you can't be in that business. Like, and like, I look at a guy like Ricochet. Like, I know Ricochet went on this whole tirade on Twitter recently about how much they took his dreams and hopes and they teared him down, and how much he hated his experience in the company. That to me, it's, if you feel that way, that's when it's time to take a step away. But like, if you keep grinding, if you keep pushing, yeah, you may not get to the pinnacle of Cody Rhodes winning the main event and beating the champion of 1,300 plus days. But at the same time, like you said, if you love it, if you put some people over, you tell some good stories. Steen hasn't been the champion for a decade, and yet I would say his stuff has been my favorite since I've been watching it from the male perspective. I love the stuff he did with the son of a computer electrician or something, and the feud with Cody Rhodes and all the great matches with Zayn / Generico. Like, holy shit, man! Some of that stuff is just some of the best matches you'll see. So I don't know. I think you got to keep grinding too. And I agree that as long as it's entertaining at the end of the day, that's what matters. I guess it's just the part of me that goes, oh man, I wish, X, Y, and Z could be reaching this pinnacle, but I guess that's not realistic at the same time too.
I guess like I got one more question for you, and then we can
Sure.
kind of like wrap this up. So my last question is what is something that you would like to see happen in wrestling in the upcoming future?
Ooh, okay. Wrestling in general, we're talking, or
Just yeah,
WWE?
just wherever, man.
Wow, that's a really good question. I wish I was. That's what I wish I was prepared with an answer with. I don't know. I mean, I guess I will say the number one thing, and I'll stick with WWE, is the fact that when these people get over organically, despite what their plan is, right? Like Chelsea Green, you mentioned her. She's over. They love her.
Mhm.
She genuinely garners a response, and not that I like Julia a lot better, like just as a performer. She's not over. I like Vaquer a lot better. She's not as over. It's just not the same type of reaction and response from a crowd. I think when they see that, they should pounce on it. There's a whole saying, strike the iron when it's hot, right? And when something's hot, I don't get killing it. I don't get pushing it to the side or underexposing it. Okay, you're getting over. Let's have you lose every match, or let's have you not go out there. That's such an ignorant way of doing business. You're getting cheers. So why don't they see dollar signs in that? It bothers me. You could sell money. You could sell tickets. You could put butts in the seats, as Tony Schiavone would say. You could put butts in the seats, and instead their own ignorance of, wait a minute, you're not who we are pushing. You're not Jade. You're not Tiffany. You're not Steph. You're not going to be the person. I think that stuff sucks. Like, if you see someone's getting organically over, despite whether it's your plan, intention, or not, I think the thing I'd like to see in pro wrestling is a reward for that. You got
Yeah.
over carrying cross, you're organically over. We're going to put a mid card belt on you. We'll see how it goes then. If it
Yeah.
fails, we can always fucking pull the rug out from under you.
Right.
It's a predetermined thing. But if it succeeds, you might be the next Stone Cold. What is wrong with that? What's wrong with drawing money and making these people? That's my answer to your question. I
I
wish they
I
would do that.
and I don't get that, man. They used to do that stuff all the time, especially in the 90s and early 2000s. They would let's just test stuff out on people, and just if it didn't work, it didn't work, and they go a different direction. But it just seems like nowadays they're just I don't know if they're just too scared to do that, or just like this they're just too lazy to do that, or what it is.
I don't know, man. Like when the Ring Master debuted, I'm sure they didn't think he was going to be main eventing the next few WrestleManias. Yet
Right.
he did. I'm sure they didn't think Lex Luger and the Lex Express was going to fail as terribly as it did. but it fucking did. He didn't work in the main event, just didn't work out, and they went with Brett. I just feel like they don't call that audible anymore. It's just, nope, we're forcing it. Like with Jade, like, again, beautiful lady, looks like $1,000,000. That's really it, though. I don't think she's a good talker. I don't think she's
Yeah.
particularly good in the
I'm
ring.
not a big fan of her. I mean, like, I think she's got a great look,
Same.
but as far as, in ring, on the mic, just overall, she's still very green.
And how long
Now
can you be green for? She's been in the business
right,
a long
she's
enough
been there
time.
for a while, so I don't know. Like, I usually try to be patient with people, but
Same.
where she's been there for quite a while now, it just seems like they're never really gonna get anywhere with it. It seems, I mean, if it's not working with her, and it doesn't really, like, there's a lot of, like, kind of or crowd interaction with her when she's out there. It's not, there's really not much noise. There's really not, anything that really goes on, and it seems like, it seems like they're really, like, getting into her matches or whatever. But so why not just go somewhere else? So I mean, I see, like, right now they're kind of thing with Jordan Grace, and Jordan Grace, that's another, girl that's got a really good look. I mean, she's extremely talented in ring too. I mean, I've not heard her much on the mic, but I think there's a lot of potential with her. So maybe, either they, put the belt on her, or, because I don't think they're going to do anything between Liv and Jade. I mean, I know
No,
they had a little
definitely not.
interaction on SmackDown this past Friday, but I think it's going to be, Liv and whoever the women's world champion is come WrestleMania, which honestly, I don't think it's going to be Stephanie. I think she's going to drop it before Mania, and because I just don't see Stephanie and Liv as kind of this, big match. It doesn't have a really big feel to it. Uh, I honestly see them either putting the belt on Rhea or Io, but most realistically, probably Rhea, because, even though Io is great, I mean, all around,
Sure.
she's a great, women's world champion. I think, there's a lot of, and I hate to say this, there's a lot of language barrier, not just her, but with Stephanie, with, Julia,
Sure.
several people that's within the company right now. And I hate seeing Chelsea just got injured on Friday.
Did
So
hurt her
she's,
leg or foot, right?
yeah, so I don't even think she's going to be a part of Mania this year. Maybe not. I don't know. She could heal in time, but it's just really hard to see, like, where they're going at this point, especially with people like Jade and Stephanie, because Stephanie, even though she's great in the ring and everything, she's still there's that language barrier with her. With Jade, there's no language barrier; it's just everything else
It's a
with her.
barrier, yeah.
So yeah, I really don't know, but what they're doing, what they're going to do. But like I said earlier, that's what makes it exciting for me,
Yes.
is that, they always keep me guessing, and sometimes it is predictable. Like this year at the Rumble, I predicted everything correct that
You
was
did,
going to
yeah.
happen. But still, that doesn't make me, enjoy it any less. It just makes me, think, well, that's interesting. So they kind of did what I thought they were going to do. But then there's always many more other times where they've done stuff I didn't think they were going to
Oh,
do.
the Jey
So
Uso thing, I never thought that he would win the Rumble last year when he did, and then that was some trying somebody new, and, like, listen, it didn't end up working in the long run, but, like, I appreciate them trying somebody new who was over. That crowd, that entrance, I heard you even talk about it when you're there live, how exciting that was for you.
yeah, it is.
That I appreciate them trying. It didn't work out. I don't
Right.
think, it's all his fault, but I think that a lot of it is just, again, their hesitance to push these new people, and I think they just got to do it.
Right. But I'm gonna go through these. I know I've seen a lot of people. And I appreciate all you guys for
Yeah,
joining
thank you
and
guys.
watching the show today. Appreciate John being on here. So, like, I know a lot of these people, a lot of you guys in here right now are more so because of John, because of me, because I know he has a really good file. So thank you guys from coming over from his channel to mine and checking this interview out.
Subscribe to this guy. Crater's the man.
I appreciate it, man. So we got Mrs. C. She said, my grandparents and mom were big fans, so they literally grew up watching it.
It's
Yeah,
awesome.
like I don't think my parents or anybody, like, it was just my brother that really, like, was watching it before I was, and that was one of the biggest reasons why I got into it was because of him. Um Heather says Morrison has the best abs in the business. He's one of the guys that has. I think what's that one guy that was in the OVW here recently, like Mister Pectacular.
Oh, I haven't
Uh,
seen him. I got.
I think his name is Jesse Goddards or something like that. Have you not watched that documentary series on Netflix called Wrestlers or whatever? It's
I
like
have
about
not. I've watched the Unreal, but I didn't watch Wrestlers.
dude, watch that. It's about all of the OVW stuff, and it's such a good documentary, man. Like, it's like 6 episodes or something. So it doesn't take they're an hour long each, so you can probably watch the whole thing within a couple of days. So yeah, and that guy I'm talking about, Mr. Spectacular, he's a part of that. So
Oh, cool.
that's how I found it. But yeah, there's a lot of like really built guys with good abs. And Austin Theory, I think's another guy that's got good abs. Not that I'm looking or staring at him all the time or
I was
anything.
like, all right, Mount Rushmore
but
of abs, go.
but if you are, that's cool too. No judgment here. Um, let's see. Heather also says, I think I started watching around 1997 ish. I gravitated towards the Hardy Boys. Oh, fuck yeah. I love the Hardy Boys, especially because, like, it was, well, I don't think I like it wasn't 97. It was like maybe 99 because they were doing like the new brood stuff. Like they started out, they were like managed by Michael Hayes,
Right.
and then like they teamed up to be the new brood with Gangrel, and then beyond that is when they started doing like they got with Lita and did the Team Extreme stuff and all the TLC matches.
All
Man,
that stuff was such perfect timing because that's
oh
where
my god!
society was in the late '90s, early 2000s. Like they were so fucking like grunge rock. It was really something else.
And it's a crazy thing. I'm glad Heather brought this up about that because I can remember where I was almost every single time, a certain like big moment happened in the late 90s in wrestling. I can remember, I can visualize it in my mind like I was in a living room or my bedroom or wherever watching that, and I can remember what I was feeling, what I was thinking, and it's crazy. And I think that's why wrestling is so important to me because and it's why I can remember all that stuff so much. But Mrs. C says I used to have the biggest crush on Tommy Wildfire Rich. Well, Mrs. C, you need to come to Eastern Kentucky because he makes a lot of appearances around here. Most recently had his own wrestling promotion that's just maybe just right down the road. He has events all the time. It's called Wildfire Championship Wrestling, and like he's always in the main event at those shows. So yeah, and I've went back and watched some of Tommy Rich's stuff from like NWA and stuff, and like when he was having just the battles with Flair and and all those guys. It's that was great shit, man. Like there's a ton of that stuff on YouTube to watch. And then, he would later in the 90s, he would be a part of the FBI and ECW. And that was a whole interesting thing too, like with him. It didn't last too long, but like he was like they called him the Don of the FBI, Tommy Rich. I think he wasn't Tommy. He was going by Thomas Rich. I think
Oh,
when he was in the FBI. So, yeah. So that's a good one to check out if you've never seen that stuff when he was in ECW. Um, Heather, you also said biggest disappointment to me was when Kane got unmasked and he wasn't really burnt. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So I remember that was when he was teaming up with RVD at the time, and then like he lost this match. I think it was against Triple H or somebody. I can't. I think that's who it was. Is that right? So
yeah.
he lost the match and had to unmask, and he just had like the little tuft of hair in the back, and it looked like he had just rubbed fucking charcoal on his face or something.
That was right around the time he tombstone Linda McMahon.
It was. Oh my god, that was so. I just watched a clip of that the other day, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I forgot about that. It was like like the slowest tombstone pile driver up on the stage too,
Yeah.
by where the entrance was. Let's see what else we got going on here. Mrs. C said, I mostly had friends and family tell me, it's fake, don't you? And that hurts, man. I mean, I hated that because even though when I still thought it was real and I don't know, you might relate to this too, John, but like when I still thought it was real, I had friends and other people tell me, "Oh, that shit's fake," or "That's fake, man," and I would get so mad. Like, have you ever seen like the scene in Ready to Rumble with David Arquette where he's like, "Wrestling not fake"? That was me as a kid. That was me. Like
That's
for dude,
awesome.
100%.
Oh, me too. I've been there.
She said to me, it's the most irritating thing you can say to a wrestling. I don't think she meant wrestling fan, but yeah, I agree 100%. It was so irritating to
It's so
me.
ignorant. It's such
So
a
mad.
like, yeah, like okay, what? I like horror movies too. You can tell me those are fake. Like, yeah, they're fake.
Yeah,
Big fucking deal.
and that's how I like try to transition the conversation nowadays when because I still have people like I'll say, hey, yeah, I'm a wrestling fan. They're like, well, you like that fake stuff or whatever.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like, I'm like, well, I mean, it's not really fake. It's scripted, just like any other TV show or movie or any source of entertainment that you watch. Maybe not like sports or anything, but that's the whole thing behind it being sports entertainment. It's more like theater than it is sports,
Yes.
and like as I said yesterday on the show, you can look at literally anything in this world, any kind of general interest that you may have, anything that adapts to your lifestyle, culture, whatever. If you look hard enough, you'll find something that relates to you in professional wrestling. And that's why I'm such a fan of it. But I don't know if do you feel the same way, John?
Oh no, I was that same way. Like I'll never forget the weekend I was going to New Jersey for the SummerSlam. I was in the deli and the guy was like, "Oh hey, where you heading for the weekend?" I was like, "Oh, I'm going to SummerSlam." And I had a couple people look at me like they looked at me like I was a leper or something. I was like, "What is so wrong with liking pro wrestling?" Like it automatically gets a look. And like, you know what? People don't like it and they want to be ignorant. They go and be ignorant. More for me and you, bro.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just gonna go through a few more of these
Sure.
comments. So we got Woo. Yeah.
Woo!
Let's see. Grande better break it. Let's hear that Dusty Rhodes impression again, John.
Let me tell you something, Daddy. We on CraterMania live, if you will. It's episode number 2 with the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking aim to kicking candy ass. Gonna drop the bionic elbow on you, Daddy.
I love it, man. Oh, it's amazing. Oh man, I love this. I love hearing anybody do a Dusty impression. It makes my
yeah,
day.
it's like contagious. It's like you want to do it if you hear someone else do it.
See, just typed in and found Hero versus Punk. It's on.
Oh, great
Hell
match.
yeah, watch it. Let us know what you think. Let's see. Jerry Lynn got over with me when he wore the
Oh, did
Jonathan
he?
that featured on. I forgot about that. That's
I've never
right.
seen that.
Yeah, that was probably like 2004, 5, maybe.
Oh man, that's awesome. I remember Eric Rowan a couple WrestleManias ago. He wore a Romero shirt that had all the zombie movies he did.
Oh yeah, he did.
I marked out for that. And it was like,
It was
why
like it
you?
was. I think it was like. Was it like the Ramones logo?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I popped, and they were like, "What is the deal?" I was like, "That's the fucking coolest shirt."
Zetro says Flair versus Rhodes time was epic. It absolutely was. I mean, I wasn't around during that time when it was happening live, but I went back and just like a
Same,
lot of other people watched that stuff. It was, it really defined the business at that time.
right? Rhodes and
Um,
Flair and Rhodes and Harley Race are some of the best like rivalries there ever were.
but yeah, I guess that's it for this episode. Thank you so much, John. I mean, this has been so fun. It's been such
Oh,
a pleasure to interview you, ask you about what, your thoughts on wrestling and all that. And it's so cool to see because you're one of the very few people that I know that I consider a friend that has gotten into wrestling around the time that you said that you did. So that's so interesting to get someone's perspective getting into wrestling. That what to me, I consider that late, but just
right.
we're different ages, so I can see how that it works that way. But that's so cool. I love hearing your story. Again, just thank you so much for taking your time to come on here. And I know you're a busy guy just like anyone else, so it means a lot to me having you here, man.
Dude, that thank you a million for having me on. I'm honored to be the first guest that you ever had on this channel, and I'm so excited about the series and hearing other people's stories of because yours was great, and I'm very excited to hear. I know you said I won't divulge. I don't know if you want to say who you're having on the show next or not. So, but the names you told me backstage, I'm very excited to hear, and I do thank you a bunch. You're a great friend, and yeah, it was fun taking a stroll down memory lane with you, talking all things pro wrestling because I don't know. I don't get to do it enough, and when I do, it's exciting. So this was a great time, man. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. And yeah, like John did say, I do have several other guests that I need to still get scheduled. Like I said, there's got some things going on in my own personal life right now with work and everything, trying to get that figured out so I can find the time, to do these new episodes on the show. So just subscribe to the channel, subscribe to John's channel as well if you're not already. And I've got his links down in the description on this video for his YouTube, for his Instagram. So Grande's Graveyard, check it out. If you're a horror fan, if you're a wrestling fan, he's got more horror stuff on there than he does wrestling, but definitely John is such an entertaining guy. Love hearing him talk about stuff. He's so passionate, just like, myself and so many of my other friends. So it's good to see him putting content out on the regular. But like I said, if you want to go ahead and subscribe here to the channel, just keep an eye out to when, I eventually get these more interviews scheduled, and just get them, to where we do those later, sometime here within the next few weeks, maybe. But I want to thank everyone once again before we go. I know a lot of you are probably going to be watching the Super Bowl tonight, and I don't really care about football, but I'll still watch it because it's like a thing we do. It's tradition every year anyway, and I like watching the commercials and all that.
Me too.
But again, thank you guys. And as I always say, I love you guys and have a good night.